The MotoGP season continues to evolve into a complex saga beyond the racetrack, while simultaneously unfolding as a major drama on it, one that is shaking the strategic foundations of Ducati, currently the strongest team on the grid. On the surface, news about Francesco Bagnaia's future at Ducati, and the shared support from both him and Marc Márquez for the new restart regulations may appear to be separate and loosely connected topics. Yet, when examined together, they reveal a much larger shadow cast over Ducati's internal dynamics, regulatory changes that are forcing teams and riders to react in unprecedented ways, and the uncertain fate of one of the most important riders on today's grid. This story is rooted in Bagnaia's contract, which is set to expire at the end of this year, precisely as Ducati enters a critical transitional phase ahead of the new 2027 regulations. According to reports from motorsport.com, while Bagnaia has appeared calm when questioned about a contract extension, signals coming from Ducati's leadership suggest a different priority. The manufacturer is more focused on securing Marc Márquez's future within their garage. Ducati CEO Claudio Domenicali and team manager Davide Tardozzi have stated explicitly that renewing Márquez's contract is their priority, and only after that will they turn their attention to the second half of the lineup, namely Bagnaia. This statement sends a message far larger than a simple order of priorities in rider negotiations. It reflects a shift in bargaining power within Ducati's relationship with its riders. When Marc Márquez joined Ducati, he did not arrive merely as a high-profile new signing. His presence fundamentally altered the internal balance of power within the team, granting him significant influence over long-term strategic decisions. He arrived off the back of a dominant previous season, establishing himself as the reference point on the grid and gaining substantial negotiating leverage, a position that has indirectly placed Bagnaia, a two-time world champion, in a more complex situation than he has ever faced before. Most striking is how this scenario highlights Ducati's organizational dilemma. On one hand, the manufacturer invested immense trust in Bagnaia during his championship-winning era in 2022 and 2023. On the other, the new dominance brought by Márquez in 2025 has positioned him as a more secure, competitive cornerstone for the team's future. When Ducati's leadership says, renewing Marc's contract is our priority, just as it was with Pecco when he became world champion, they are not merely assessing two rider contracts. They are weighing Ducati's long-term competitive direction as a whole, in the face of intensifying competition and sweeping regulatory changes looming over MotoGP. For Bagnaia himself, this situation is far from pressure-free. Last season saw a clear dip in his performance compared to previous years, a reality that cannot be easily concealed within Ducati's highly scrutinized garage. His discomfort with the front end of the Desmosedici GP25 became symbolic of a rider-machine relationship that no longer felt as harmonious as it once did. That unresolved tension carried through to the end of the season, becoming an off-track issue. Amid all this, Bagnaia has projected a deliberately relaxed attitude regarding his future. When asked about his plans once his contract expires, he insisted that his primary focus is on starting the season strongly and staying concentrated on the track. His words, "I'm relaxed about my contract renewal. I just want to start the season well and focus on that," reflect a rider attempting to project calm on the surface, even as a storm brews behind the scenes. This is not merely about a contract. It touches on pride, hierarchy within the team, and long-term career prospects at the highest level of motorcycle racing. Yet the contrast between Bagnaia's silence and the noise echoing through Ducati's corridors is only one strand of a broader narrative. While Bagnaia and Márquez navigate contract drama and questions about their futures, both riders have also found themselves aligned at the center of discussions surrounding MotoGP's new restart rules. Crash.net reports that the two world champions have openly supported the regulation, which is designed to improve on-track safety. A change that may appear minor on the surface, but one with far-reaching implications for rider mentality and technical approaches within teams. The new rule prohibits restarting a bike on the racing surface if the engine has stalled after a crash. Instead of attempting to fire the bike up at trackside, the machine must be moved to the service road before any restart attempt can be made. The primary aim is to reduce the exposure of marshals to immediate danger. On the surface, the rule seems simple and logical, safer for marshals, riders, and everyone involved in an incident. Márquez, who previously showed visible frustration when marshals nearly dropped his bike following a crash at MotoGP the year before, welcomed the rule as a safer way. He emphasized that while it can sometimes be difficult for marshals to move a bike far from the track, the clarity of the regulation provides certainty. If the rule says, if the engine stops, you cannot rejoin, then it's clear. So it's better for everyone, he explained. What is particularly revealing is Bagnaia's honest and direct comment on the technical side of the rule. It's important to keep the engine running, he said, joking about his own misfortune with engines often cutting out after crashes. Such remarks, though lighthearted, open a window into a deeper reality. The rule indirectly increases the value of a rider's ability to keep the bike running after a fall, a skill that was previously not heavily prioritized. From both a technical and strategic standpoint, this adds a new layer of pressure on riders to be not only fast, but also adept at risk management and mechanical awareness at the limit. The regulation change also has the potential to influence how teams balance aggressive bike performance with crash friendliness. Because keeping the engine alive during a slide could allow a rider to rejoin the race, teams may need to reassess anti-stall strategies that have traditionally been optimized for maximum power delivery. On one hand, keeping the engine running could help riders like Márquez salvage valuable points after a crash. On the other, it increases the risk of engine damage and higher maintenance costs, factors that cannot be ignored in an increasingly packed race calendar. When we combine Ducati's contract narrative with the restart regulation changes supported by both riders, a common thread emerges: the rising complexity of rider and team strategy in an ever-evolving competitive landscape. Ducati must now consider how rider futures and technical decisions will shape its identity. The team must weigh the value of stability against the pursuit of sustained dominance. Meanwhile, the new regulations have introduced an additional strategic layer that extends beyond pure speed or bike performance, touching on safety, risk, and the opportunity to score points even after a crash, a competitive reality that can no longer be overlooked. Moreover, this narrative does not exist in isolation. Ducati is currently celebrating its centenary milestone, unveiling the GP26 with a special livery that reflects its rich history and future ambitions, while Bagnaia seeks to reverse his fortunes after 2 challenging seasons, and Márquez hunts for record-breaking victories and long-term contractual security. Technical demands, regulatory pressures, and financial considerations are all intertwined, creating an ecosystem of stress in which even small decisions, such as restart rules, can have outsized consequences for how teams approach the coming season. In this context, Bagnaia's future at Ducati appears far more complex than a simple contract renewal. He is not merely being forced to choose between staying or leaving. He must prove to Ducati that he remains an irreplaceable asset in their long-term strategy, amid Márquez's dominance and regulatory changes that demand adaptation from the entire grid. With his contract expiring, last season's fluctuating performance, and Ducati's apparent prioritization of Márquez, Bagnaia's future stands at a critical crossroads in both his career and the modern history of MotoGP. Further complicating the picture is the relationship between riders and Ducati's technology itself, a dynamic often more intricate than it appears from the outside. Ducati must now manage not only 2 star riders with significant egos and ambitions, but also the technical realities that demand compromise between peak performance and safety within an ever-evolving regulatory framework, such as the new restart rules. If Bagnaia wishes to return as an untouchable dominant force, he must demonstrate not only speed, but also adaptability and continued relevance within an increasingly strategic team structure. In many ways, this narrative reflects MotoGP's evolution from a simple on-track contest into a multifaceted campaign where performance, strategy, safety, and contract diplomacy all interact. Ducati, as one of the sport's most historic teams, sits at the center of this transformation. Bagnaia, despite his past achievements, now faces the greatest challenge of his career, not merely winning races, but preserving his relevance amid intensifying internal and external competition. And while the new restart rules may appear to be a minor detail, they symbolize how MotoGP now demands a holistic approach to competition, where strategic intelligence is as vital as raw talent on the track. With the 2026 season drawing ever closer, Ducati must make crucial decisions not only about its rider lineup, but also about how it positions itself in response to regulatory changes and escalating competitive pressure. Bagnaia must navigate a future filled with uncertainty, opportunity, and the need to reaffirm himself as a central pillar of Ducati's project. Meanwhile, Márquez, buoyed by renewed dominance and strong contractual leverage, stands as the gravitational center of Ducati's forward strategy. The restart regulation, seemingly simple, is yet another reminder that MotoGP continues to evolve into an arena where adaptability and strategic vision can be just as decisive as outright speed. And it is here that the story of Bagnaia, Ducati, and Márquez is truly being written.